What if I told you your relationship with a man can easily be ruined by oversharing? What if I also told you it doesn't have to ruin everything if you just understand what not to do? Which is exactly why on today's show we'll be discussing how to avoid oversharing so that men fall in love with you. That way you can become an expert on receiving the right information without giving too much in return. Number 1 point. So you're gonna have two types of guys. One of these men here is going to be the current, and then the other one is gonna be the ex. What I wanna kind of describe to you here is a concept that I want you to take in about the past, why it's important, and then how to avoid oversharing this and share it the right way. See, this is the thing about the guys that you're dating when you're talking about the past. If you make the mistake of oversharing too much information about the past, especially if that information about the past is how that guy has treated you so horribly, how he's disrespected you, how he cheated on you a million times and you took him back a million times, what these guys are going to attempt to do is they're going to look at this reflection of the ex to figure out where they should meet you, right? Are you following me? We'll call this the threshold. So this bar here, let's imagine the bar that your ex set of the threshold under which a man will have access to you is right here. So your ex met you right here. In the process of you telling him and oversharing especially about all of this information in detail about how this ex met you down here, he did less than nothing for you, he didn't pay for a single date, he didn't take you out once, all you did was spend time with him in the house watching Netflix, and even still with that, you didn't break up with him, he eventually cheated on you and then chose the other girl to date her instead, and that's the only reason why you guys broke up. So you're really setting the bar all the way down here. And you're oversharing to the point where you're giving him details about how you got disrespected and allowed that disrespect to go on. So the guys that you're meeting, the current guys that you're in relationships with or you're dating, they're figuring out that, hey, if this is the threshold that's already been set for her and the guys that will get access to her, why would I meet her over and up over here to be the new guy? We'll just put new here. Why would I be up here, meet her up here, when the last guy that had access to her literally was right here on this threshold bar and he still got access to her? So he'll be saying to himself, I'm not going to be up here. He's going to say to himself, if I am better looking, I've got more money than her ex, I'm taller than her ex, I'm 6'4", he's not even 6 foot, right? I have a larger schlong than her ex. You know, guys always think they got the biggest schlong, right? I got a larger schlong than her ex. I'm just an overall better specimen, more enticing and attractive human being than her ex. So they think to themselves, if that bozo of a man that disrespected you and treated you horribly and didn't take you out on a single date can be right here and still get access to you, and I'm so much better than that bozo of a man, well, then by golly me, I'm gonna meet you right here. So his idea of getting access to you is not going above and beyond this. His idea of getting access to you is going right below the threshold that has already been set by you, that you've made very clear to him in details that you've overshared about your past. So let's kind of figure out, how are we going to avoid this? How are we going to put you in a position where you're not oversharing with men and making a mistake of telling them intimate details about how a guy mistreated you and disrespected you, but not lying, okay, right? Because we're going to kind of tote a line here. So let's say your ex mistreated you and he did cheat on you, all right? Let's even say, for the sake of example, he cheated on you multiple times. What I want you to start doing is reframing your past. Now, you're not going to lie about anything, but what I want you to do is make sure that you paint a picture, because all of your stories, especially the stories about your past, you're painting a picture. My expectation of the men in my life is right up here, right? Guys are gonna have to be at this upper echelon, right, up here, in order to get access to me. Any guy that doesn't reach this upper echelon of men doesn't get access to me. There was a point where I thought that this ex at one point was capable of meeting me at this threshold that I have set up here, right? We'll call these your standards. My ex, when he showed me that he couldn't meet those standards, he couldn't meet that threshold that I had set, I realized it was time for me to let go of that person and that relationship. And I walked away, stepped away, I ran away, and that guy doesn't have access to me whatsoever anymore. He couldn't even dream of having access to me anymore. He couldn't call me, he couldn't message me, he couldn't send me a TikTok meme. He can't do nothing with me whatsoever. That is the way you want to frame and paint that picture, because now you're showing him that yes, that guy may have mistreated you, he may have disrespected you. The person I have grown and matured to become now, the person you're seeing in front of you now would never in a million years allow those things to happen ever again. Let's imagine here, there's a control panel, right? And like the type of control panel you might have on a ship or something like that, or for a video game. I don't know, I don't play video games. And let's imagine on this control panel here, you have all of these different emotions. Okay, so you have anger, you have happiness, you have sadness here. Now, the reason I kind of want to build you this visual is because trauma, when you overshare it, can become something very detrimental to you and what you're trying to do. When you overshare your trauma, you trauma dump on men, it might feel good in the moment, right? It might feel good to do because when you meet a guy and he can be like your therapist right away, I tell you to be a sexy therapist. But when you meet a guy and he can be like your therapist right away, where you can dump on him all of your issues since you literally were born as a child, you can start to feel like, well, Tomisin, that feels really good to do on a date, and I love that, and I feel so much closer to that guy. But the problem is you're giving him this control panel here. You're literally showing him word for word, band for band, okay? All the different ways that you have been traumatized throughout your life. Subsequently, you're actually showing him how to push each one of your buttons. So that's the reason why I put emotions here on each one of these buttons, because this control panel isn't just a random control panel. This is a control panel for and here's the problem. If you overshare this trauma and you trauma dump on these men, you're thinking to yourself, well, now at least he knows what I've actually been through. But you're giving him this control panel to your emotions, and you have no idea what a stranger is going to do with that level of control over your emotions. He might decide, oh, perfect. Now that I know all the ways she's been deeply hurt and traumatized, I'm gonna make sure I use this control panel to get her to do things or feel things when it's convenient for me. So if I want to make her, let's say, have anxiety, I'm gonna push a particular button or do a particular thing that's in line with the trauma she's already experienced. And then when I make her feel that sadness or that upsetness or that anxiety, now I can get her to do what I want her to do. Also, vice versa, if I know certain things based on her experiences can make her feel really good or feel really happy, and I want to give her that in order to control her and control her emotions, well, then I'll push that button. So now you're kind of giving him the play-by-play on exactly how to push each individual button when it's most convenient for him to push that button. You're giving him, so imagine I'm here with you and I'm teaching you and I'm telling you everything that goes on in relationships and about emotions. And I'm telling you, I'm teaching you and I'm giving you examples and giving you stories. You're literally sitting on this date and you're doing the same thing with that man. You're giving him the stories, the direct examples, you're giving him the play-by-play, you're telling him how you felt, you're breaking down your feelings, you're breaking down your thoughts, you're breaking down what ended up happening and transpiring throughout the whole thing. You're going through the entire thing, you're teaching him a lesson on your control panel and your emotions. And then you wonder why some of these guys, right, who you don't know, who are strangers that you're on a date with, some of them take that information and then they play you with it. Or they take that information and they utilize it against you, right, to either hurt you or to put you in a compromising situation, because you have no idea who that guy is, you don't know what his motives are, and you don't know if he's even here for the right reasons and if he actually wants to build the same thing that you're looking to build. So it's very important that you understand you can't overshare the trauma. Never. I don't care how cool you think he is on the first date. I don't care how much fun you're having on the first date. I don't care how much you're laughing and you're vibing. You know the Gen Z, the kids love vibes, right? The kids love to vibe. I don't care how much you're vibing. You never overshare trauma. In fact, I would love for you to undershare trauma as much as possible. Now, here's where we have to have a discussion, because obviously, today's about avoiding oversharing, but then how do you actually avoid talking about things that traumatize you if that's the topic of conversation, right? So for example, both of your parents divorced while you were a teenager, and that was a really traumatic time for you. And he asked you a question like, oh, what about your family, right? Where's your family live? Or, how did you grow up? What was your childhood like, right? And you're thinking to yourself, well, Tomisin, how do I not share the traumatic situation, which is my parents' divorce, when my parents are divorced? I can't just not say that. Am I supposed to say I don't want to talk about my family? No. So this is what you do. Anytime you stumble across the conversation of a really traumatic situation, what I want you to do is give someone, right? Give someone what has transpired without going into too much detail about how this happened and how that happened and how that happened. And if they ask you for more detail, you can tell them, you can feel free to tell them that, hey, this is a conversation I definitely want to have, but I want us to get to know each other more before I go into topics that deep, okay? And you have to get comfortable understanding that some things aren't for the first, second, and third date, okay? I know sometimes you can vibe with someone and feel like it's a good vibe and it's open to share and things like that, but at some point, especially if they keep digging, you have to say, look, we can definitely talk about this. I have no problem talking about it, but I want us to kind of, deepen our relationship before, we get into subjects that deep and heavy. Anyone who is prepared to build with you and get to know you will have no problem working towards some of those topics. Not everything has to be, I tell you on the first time type of thing. You get to the facts, right? You don't have to go into the detail of, so when I was a child, and my parents divorced, it was such a tragic time for me. And there was so much trauma that my father, he put on me. I can't believe how much trauma he put on me. And when he went down to Miami, he had a different girlfriend and he came back one day and No. I'm not saying that you shouldn't share your truth and your story and things like that, and your story is not important. Your story is important. But let's save your story, your emotional and tragic and traumatic story, for people who care about you, love you, that you can verify they care about you and love you. When you're on a date with a stranger, you have not yet verified that that person truthfully cares about you and loves you. Number 3. So let's imagine there's a hangman game going on here, right? So you guys know how hangman goes. And let's imagine in this game of hangman that men are playing with you, they're trying to get to understand, what does the word say? So they're saying to themselves, okay, I'm gonna guess these different words, right? And I wanna understand, what it is that you're trying to communicate to me. So they'll say, well, let me guess a G here, okay? Right? They're trying to understand you. They wanna understand your desires. They wanna understand what you want. They wanna understand the type of guy that you're looking for, right? What are you looking for is a question that everyone asks. So there's a G in one place, right? They might say there's an N over here, right? Does anyone know what this word is? Okay. You might say there's an H here. And as he's asking you more and more questions about your desires, he's getting closer and closer to a very, very important answer for himself. You guys are so smart, and I even did it wrong, and you guys still guessed it. Okay, so Prince Charming, right? And the reason for this is because men are trying to understand, what are your desires? What do you want? What does it look like? What does it sound like? How does he walk? How does he talk? And once they get that understanding of exactly what your desires are, then they know exactly how to put this suit on for you that makes you feel like he's exactly what you're looking for. So when you overshare desires, you'll essentially be like playing a hangman game for him and giving him the exact playbook on exactly how to dress himself up for you so that he can be exactly what you're looking for. The problem is, though, you want to know the only time you realize he's not what you're looking for? After you sleep with him. The reason I say this, and talk about oversharing as it relates to desires is because men will change the way they are so that they can make you feel like they're who you're looking for. Now, how do we avoid that? We avoid this, and we avoid letting men in on all of your desires by being very, very vague. When men start to ask you, hey, what's exactly, your perfect type of guy? How does he treat you? Where does he take you? And all those type of things. What I want you to do, you're not going to say, oh, I'm not going to tell you about my perfect guy because I know you're just trying to get a Prince Charming suit so you can put it on and trick me and sleep with me and jackrabbit yourself inside of me and never speak. No, that's too much. We don't want you to do that. We want you to stay in your feminine. So in this case, when you're being slick and he asks you all these details about what your desires are in a man, you can pretend, oh, I'm just not sure. I'm like a damsel in distress and I just have no idea what it is I'm looking for, but I know one day a big, strong man will come and he'll literally sweep me off my feet one day, but I have no idea what he'll look like. I have no idea what he'll sound like. I have no idea what his personality will be like. I'm sure when I see it, I'll know it. Because you set up a situation where it doesn't look like you have any animosity towards him or you have any sort of trick up your sleeve where you're purposely not telling him things. You get to stay in your feminine energy, this feminine role where you're just saying, I just honestly don't know. I wish I knew. Maybe if you're a smart, intelligent man, you could teach me or show me, but I just don't know what it looks like, don't know what it smells like, don't know what it feels like. I've never experienced it, right? And this is great because now you've given him absolutely nothing. You've given him nothing to go off of. You've given him no real information and you've given him no real details. So imagine this like a game of hangman where he literally has no clues, right? Because clues is what makes it easier to know exactly what it is. And if there's no clues, no information, and it's too complex to guess or guesstimate, now he's literally just having to whiff and give you what he thinks you might want. And depending on who you are or what you enjoy or what you're looking for, he may or may not be what you're looking for. But that's good because now you're evaluating him more on a basis of who he actually is than giving him so much detailed information that he can be exactly who you are looking for. Number 4, don't overshare your feelings. I'm gonna put 2 boxes here. We're gonna think of these like a level up bar, okay? First level up bar, we're gonna have like here. Second level up bar, we're gonna have effort here. So in these 2 level up bars, what I want you to understand is the concept of how oversharing your feelings. Now, I'm not talking about feelings of how you feel in your mind and whether you're happy or sad. I'm talking about your oversharing your feelings on how you feel about this guy. Telling him how much you like him, telling him how much you want him, telling him how, amazing of a man he is and how he's doing exactly what you've been wanting a man to do. He looks exactly how you've always dreamt your husband to look like. He smiles exactly like the husband you thought you would have. He's as tall as the guy you've always wanted. He has the exact career, the look, the charisma, and you're just oversharing how much you like this guy, especially at the very beginning. Horrible mistake. So let's imagine this visual here. Let's imagine that you make the mistake of oversharing your level of like for this guy. So you're telling him that in terms of my bar, let's imagine this as a level up bar. My bar here for the amount that I like you is all the way up here, right? It's all the way up here. And in turn, right, there's always gonna be a balancing act here. He's gonna realize if the level that you like me is all the way up here, damn near full to the top, because of how much you said I'm literally the perfect man for you and I don't need to do anything more to be any more perfect, he's gonna say, oh, amazing. Thank you for the great information. So glad you told me. Now, my effort bar is gonna be down here. Why is the effort bar gonna be all the way down here? Because you made the mistake of oversharing with me exactly how I'm already perfect. I'm already amazing, and I'm already everything you could have ever dreamed of. And you told me that on the first or second date. So now I know if I dwindle down my effort for you, I will still be perfect, I will still be amazing, and I'll still be so much better than any guy you've ever met in your entire life. This is good for him from the standpoint of now he knows once he takes a lot of this effort away, you'll still like him a lot. Even if the amount of like that you have for him dwindles down to, like, let's say here, it's still enough for you to be in a relationship with him, and he got to scale back on his effort by so much. So I say that to say you can't overshare your feelings for a man, especially not too early. Because the more confirmation you give him that he's so much better than any man you've ever experienced in your life, the more confirmation you're giving him that he can decrease this level of effort and still get the same amount of investment from you because of how much you like him. So what we want to do is we never want to overshare this. Okay, so how do we avoid oversharing this? You simply want to dial back your compliments. I know this is going to sound mean. No, this is going to sound horrible. You're going to dial those compliments back a lot. A lot. You're not gonna be overly, oh my God, you're so amazing, you're so handsome, I've never seen a man as, no. If you give him a compliment, it will solely be based on an action you've seen him do because you want that treatment to continue and you want to encourage that treatment towards you. The only time you're gonna compliment him, okay, is when he actually takes action in treating you a particular way. Then you acknowledge it because you want to give positive reinforcement that he continues to treat you like that. Aside from that, you don't need to go overboard with the compliments. I'm telling you this, okay? I'm telling you this. Me and you, we're friends. I love you. I care about you. A man who is handsome already knows he's handsome. You don't need to tell him. I'm telling you the truth. You're not gonna get closer to his heart by telling him he's handsome. A man who is fashionable and has nice style, you're not gonna get any closer to his heart by telling him he has nice style, doesn't do anything. What I want you to get good at when you are communicating how you feel, or if you do wanna compliment him, compliment an action that he took towards you, how that made you feel, and how that it was so good, however you wanna describe it. Why? Because that's the time where you want to give him positive reinforcement that you taking this action for me actually makes me give you a compliment or show you appreciation. Not just you being handsome. That doesn't do anything for me. So, for example, if you meet a guy and you go out on one date with him, and let's say, he's a handsome guy, right? He's tall, he's 6'4", he's got a nice smile, everything good, he's got muscles and all that good stuff. You say, wow, honestly, you're one of the most handsome guys I've ever dated. No. Now, vice versa, let's say you go on 3 dates with that guy, and on the third day, he brings you, he stops at your door, and before you open the door, he's got like a whole bunch of roses that he bought for you for this date, okay? Let's just say for the sake of example. Then I want you to say, oh, I really appreciate the fact that you went the extra mile and got these roses for me. I love red roses. These are my favorite. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that you did this for me, right? You're complimenting the action because you want to encourage the action. You don't compliment the fact that he looks good. It doesn't do anything, okay? And it also allows him to know that the amount that he is so perfect and so amazing and how you feel so good about him, especially if he hasn't done too much for you, will tell him that less effort will still get him the same result. The only time you want him to be hearing compliments from you is when he's putting in more effort, okay? So let's imagine it like this. Every time he takes a jump up in more effort, that's when he hears appreciation from you. That's when he hears compliments from you. And the compliments you're giving him are not you're so handsome, your jacket's so nice, you're so tall, whatever. The compliments he gets from you is I appreciate the treatment I'm receiving from you. So number 5, rules is something you want to avoid oversharing. And this is actually something that we haven't talked too much about that I want us to all take in together. It's great that you have rules and boundaries, and things that you will or won't do. I'm so happy for you and I want you to have rules and boundaries. That's exactly what we talk about. However, if you make the mistake of oversharing those rules and boundaries, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. Let me explain this to you. So, men are kind of like children. So imagine you have a child here, and this child, you're telling this child, hey, we've got a fence up, over here all around this, our backyard. And look, you can run around, you can go here in the grass, you can go there, you can go wherever you want, right? But you just can't go outside of the fence. Right? But here's the problem. See, when you tell them, I specifically don't want you to go on this part of the fence here, because on the other side of the fence over here, there are these little tortoises that could bite you, or insects that could bite you. And all these little insects over here are very bad for you. And I really don't want you going over this specific part of the fence here. That's my number one rule for you. Now the kid that was playing around, he's saying, I wonder why mom keeps telling me not to go over to this part of the fence. What bugs or insects are lying on the other side of the fence? Why can't I go over to this side? So then he creeps and he creeps and he creeps and he goes up to the fence and he touches it and he's like, nothing happened. And he creeps and he creeps and he creeps and he climbs on top of the fence and nothing happens. And he creeps and he creeps and he creeps and he takes one leg over, two legs over, and eventually he's over the fence exploring all that's over here, okay? The reason he's doing that is because you didn't just say, hey, follow these rules and stay within this fence. You said specifically, don't go to this area right here where there's something I don't want you to see. So you actually ended up making the most interesting thing in the entire backyard, the one thing you told him not to go see and go do. So what I want you to understand, rules are good. Boundaries are good. I want you to keep those boundaries and have those rules. But don't shoot yourself in the foot by telling a guy, hey, I want you to know, I've been watching the Players Club. I love Tomisin. He's one of my favorite creators. I've been watching all of these different relationship content creators. They're all so smart. And I want you to know I'm smarter than you. So I've made this new rule where I don't sleep with men until 90 days into the relationship. I'm 100% sure I won't do it with you. You're thinking in your mind, oh, well, Tomisin, you'd be so proud of me the way I stood up for myself and set those boundaries and set the rules straight. I'm telling him exactly what I want, exactly how it's going to go, and that I mean business. But what you're actually doing is you're making the most enticing part of you and this relationship with you the idea that he's going to try and sleep with you before the 90 days is over. And that's what I don't want. Because you're actually allowing him, or you're making it more interesting for him to add more pressure to you and the situation so that he can try and sleep with you even faster. Specifically because you told him you have this arbitrary rule that you don't sleep with men before 90 days. So now, instead of him just exploring this relationship with you or doing what he was already going to do, you've now given this extra incentive that, hey, if you really want to see how different you are, how charming you are, how funny and amazing you are, that you can get a girl to laugh herself out of her panties, that you can be so, charming that, even when a girl tells you no, she'll change it to a yes, then you should apply as much pressure as possible to her and then see if you can get Mrs. 90 days to turn it into 7 days, or turn it into 3 days, or turn it into one night. So you've actually made it so enticing for him to get you to break that 90-day rule simply because you stated this 90-day rule. So you're better off not saying anything and not oversharing all of your rules, that all the men can be focused on breaking those rules, as weird as it sounds. So for example, if you have a 90-day rule in your mind, just saying, hypothetically, you have a 90-day rule where you're not going to allow a man to sleep with you until it's 90 days, or let's say it's 8 dates or 7 dates, whatever your rule may be. And you say to yourself, okay, no matter what happens, what transpires, he's not going to get access to me before those 90 days. You then, instead of saying anything to him, just do that. So when he tries to sleep with you, you avoid that. When, that's our whole show yesterday, avoiding sex, you use all of your skills and tool sets and knowledge to understand, how do I avoid sleeping with him until that 90 days is up? And if he asks me why I'm not, I just give the excuse that I want to focus on the most important parts of our relationship, which is our connection, and not jump into other things too fast.